Let's start by taking a look at the posture here. What we see is really good posture. Notice that the knees are slightly flexed out over the shoelaces. The hips is where she's bending, not from the waist. She's got a straight back, chin is up, arms are hanging pretty freely down from her chin area. That's a really good setup. Let's draw the swing plane in. Oops, that's the wrong tool. Let's draw the swing plane in. Let's watch what happens on the takeaway here. Goes a little bit low into the inside. You can see what she's doing is she's kind of pushing the club behind her a little bit. I'd like to see perhaps the club a little higher at this point, right here, blocking our view of the hands, the club head. Then she's raising up here a little bit. Nice flat lead wrist. I don't mind that lead wrist being bowed like that. It's better to be bowed than to be cupped. Let's see what happens on the way down. Now she's going to see there's the typical flaw as we come out over the top. And that's because the head of the club is pointing off in this direction over here. It should be pointing more down the foot line. That would create an easier way for her to get back down to the target, which is the golf ball in this case. So she's turning back down, dropping the club right there, a little bit to the inside, returning pretty nicely right there to the impact position. And a pretty decent finish, a little off balance there because she ended up too much on her toe of her left foot. All in all, a good thing. What I think I'd work on is, again, getting that club to a better spot at the top of the backswing and then feeling a little bit more rolling off the inside of the right foot, not just taking the right knee out over the right toes, but to really turn into the shot a little better with that right side. I'd make a couple of changes in this setup. I'd like to see the hips get tilted a little bit that way, forward and up. That'll help drop the right shoulder and give her a little tilt on her spine angle, kind of more along that line right there. That's probably too much, but you know, maybe that line would be a better slant for the spine, so she can get the head clearly behind the ball, because right now it's not. Well, let's watch the takeaway, see what kind of width she gets. Good width right there, pretty good turn. Now you can see that instead of the hip staying bent back, the hip staying back, and the butt staying back, we're kind of coming in, get a little bit of a tip over there. So if she had that hip thrust, she'd have her butt behind her a little bit more. Great position at the top of the backswing though with the hands. Right to parallel, look at that. Now if she could flatten her left wrist on the way down, we'll watch and see if it flattens. It's getting better, pretty good right there. Good rotation into the shot. Right knee moving into the left knee, but then she scoops. Right, I don't know if she's swinging so fast, I'm not sure if I was good enough to capture it. But you can see right there, she's well under the golf club with the right hand. And what we need her to do is get that right hand extending down the line so it's a mirror of where she is there. If we just had that position on the forward part, we would have a perfect golf swing. But she's not quite there. She's kind of in a wholly different setup. So we're going to work really hard on getting her turning that left elbow down and the right hand over the top, right on through the swing. Great finish. We see a pretty good setup here. The feet could be a little bit further apart. We'd like to see them at least shoulder width apart or hip width apart on the insides. But let's see how he handles the balance issue with his feet that close together. Let's slowly take the club back. That's a pretty good move, good extension. The arms are moving much faster than he's turning though. So I'd like to see a little bit more shoulder turn, get that shoulder up. See, we still can see the right shoulder. We want to get that right shoulder behind his head so he doesn't have to lift up to finish his turn. And you can see, looking at the stripes on his shirt or his jacket there, how he's bending his left arm quite a bit. And that's simply because he hasn't been able to get his shoulder turned far enough under his chin. Other than that, pretty good. Dropped his foot to the ground there. Left foot to the ground, moving the hips into the shot, pretty good there, keeping the head back, very nice. Good impact position right there, good triangle formed. Now what he needs to do from here to here is make sure he turns that right hand over to the top of the club. Hogan calls it pronate supinate. We want to supinate or get palm up with the left hand at this point, and you can see we got palm up with the right hand. Other than that, it's a pretty good swing to a really nice balanced finish. So he can handle the foot position, but we need to get a little bit more club rotation through the hitting area. The goal for this golfer was to feel smoother, more balanced in his swing. So let's go ahead and watch the whole swing in slow motion. Looked pretty good. It was a little tight at the top of the follow through. I'd like to see the club release down around his shoulder a little bit more, but it looked pretty smooth. I was pretty quick considering I played that in slow motion. So we probably could get him to slow down a little bit more. Let's watch the takeaway now. He's taking the elbow straight back, getting the right forearm a little too far down. We want that elbow to be pointing to the ground, or closer would be to have the right forearm parallel to the spine, which would have the elbow down a little bit because the spine goes down to the ground. His hands are in pretty good shape there. Got a nice flat left wrist, which is really beautiful to see. I'd like to see a little bit more hinging where the club is a little closer to parallel to the ground. Now let's see if he turns down to his front side pretty good. Now his head's doing the work right there. See that? How his head's dropping down? But we see that quite a bit where the head goes down. But we see it with a better golfer. The head goes down because the knees are flexing more and he's kind of squatting to the ground. This is dipping to the ground with the head and the back. So we're going to work a little bit on that. Down. Now we're swinging the hands past the body. Not a bad rotation there. Right on through, and then to a little bit more relaxed finish, and try to move that knee right there more towards the left knee. But all in all, for a beginner golfer, a really good swing. Here's a good looking face-on view. Let's draw the power line in. That's the line that kind of gives us an idea of how much lateral shift we're getting with our lower body. We'd like the from the waist on down to be to that or past that line at impact. Let's see how she does. Now there's a little bit of over-rotating or over-sliding of the hips backwards. She should have her back still tilted forward here. And notice now it's straight up and down. The back should be more along that line there. So let's see what happens. She goes up, tips, big turn, big flex. The right knee a little too tight. Shifts into the white line. Almost gets there and then stops moving into it. And here we're going to see her scoop the ball a little bit. Let's clear the line out of the way. Scoop the ball a little bit. Could use a little bit more hand rotation. Right there. Notice how the elbows, the left elbows to the sky a little bit. We'd like to see that being tucked in a little bit more. And it's still to the sky. And then a good strong finish. If we drew a line from straight down, you can see that she didn't get all the way up to the lead side. But that's it. Good flexibility, good athleticism, good swing. Here we see a tall man with pretty good posture. The problem is he's going to rotate that club right around him like that instead of taking it straight up along the swing plane. What we'd like the golfers to do is to take the club back by feeling like the left elbow is going straight back along the toe line. So let's see what happens here. Start it back, kind of a little lifting there. Now he's okay, he's okay, he's okay, he's okay, and then all of a sudden he just flattens right out, lifts right up out of the shot. Right here is where it happens. See how flat he's getting there? That'd be the line I'd like to see him taking on the downswing. That line. But what he does is he's going to go up to here, and he's so far below the plane that he's going to get stuck and come up over the top a little bit. Oh, practice swing. Let's do it again. Let's see what he does at his real swing. That was funny. All right, up, 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 then flattens right out. And there's the over the top. Notice in his practice swing he didn't do that. But in his real swing he went ooh, right up over the top, dive bomb on it. Did get the hands back to the original position and hit a pretty solid shot. But his inconsistency is going to come in that little transition at the top. Okay, let's look at another one here. I'm going to draw that power line in on this one so you can see how much the lower body will move under the upper body. Half the lower body should be over that line at impact. Good takeaway, staying right on the line, really coiling around. Now watch his lower body shift under the upper body. Now here he really decided right here to scoop at it. He's really flipping the hands. That's why this one didn't turn out as good as the previous shot we looked at, because right now that club should still be here. You see, he's really got his right hand underneath the club, his lower body, everything right, except that right hand went underneath the hit impulse. Club is coming in wide open with a lot of loft because he's scooping on. You can see how the ball is going straight up off the club face. He still gets the good extension, but he's not going to get the distance he got out of the other one. So the key is to work long and hard on feeling that club lag. As long as you can keep that 90-degree angle, the better off you are. The technical word is conservation of angular momentum. Here we have a golfer that's trying to switch from playing left-handed to right-handed. What we'd like to see here is that the shaft was on a little bit more of a forward tilt. So the hands were more on that line, a little more forward than they are now. Maybe not that far, but a little bit further forward. And that would help him shift his hip a little bit more towards the target. So watch the takeaway. Pretty wide there. That's nice. Good wide takeaway. A little bit of lifting going on. See how he's raising up. We need to stay loaded up on that backswing. Good position there. Now he's going to dive back down to the ball, but he's not getting any drive off the right side of the leg. See how there's not even any knee turn to the shot? So all he's swinging with now is his upper body, and his legs are pretty much... only thing they're doing now is holding him off the ground. But look at his hand action there. Once he gets the legs working, see how his hands are turning over very nicely? Look at that. That's good. So from this point, if we could just get him to rotate the hips, the knees around that way, and then get up onto that right toe, I think we'll have a much better swing. But this is a big improvement considering the big changes that he's making. This golfer's setting up with a bit of a forward tilt. You can see that the shoulders are too level. In order to do that, she's got to be leaning a little bit towards the target. I'd rather her shift her hips more towards the target and get that right shoulder a little lower and the head behind the ball. You can see pretty clearly that the ball is behind the head. We need it to be quite a bit further forward, not relationship to her feet, but in relationship to her head. So let's clear that out. Let's watch the takeaway. My guess is she'll tip over. There she goes, right there. She's tipping way over. The head's even going further forward than it was before, and she gets really tall. That's okay. If we'd have just started her in a little better position to begin with, I think we'd see a better takeaway. She's very strong, very athletic, very flexible. Great angle right there coming into the ball, but she's out of position. Now she's way past the ball, turning into the shot. Going to scoop a little bit right there because she has nowhere else to go, and turns right on through to the finish. So we're going to get her to be a little bit more tilted away from the target at the setup. Let's go ahead and watch this swing in slow motion. Very nice. What we saw there is a really good rhythm. You could almost count along with that rhythm. Let's go back, see if we can find some spots we'd like to work on. The takeaway plane is really good. Look at the club head passes right through the hands. Very good. The only thing we see here is a little bit of a raising of the right elbow, which isn't really too bad. And maybe a little bit more hinging of the wrist would be in order here. But a really good position overall. I can't tell if he straightened his right knee or not. We'd like to see it remain flexed because of the wind pans, because it was pretty cold that morning. Now he takes the club right back down that same line. Look at that, right back down the same line. The classic one-plane swing. Rotates right through it. Now the ball's going a little bit to the right there, you see. That's only because he didn't quite rotate the club closed enough on the way down. You see it's open, 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 way open. So he needs to be what's called supinating a little bit more with the left hand on the way down. Get that palm up a little sooner. Back of the left hand to the ground, the back of the knuckles to the ground with the left hand. But all in all, a really good, smooth, relaxed swing to a good finish. Could use a little bit more rotation of the right foot so that the right knee gets closer to the left knee. But all in all, a pretty good swing for a guy that's only been at it for a few weeks. What we have here is a golfer set up on two different angles. You can see that the feet are going off this way and the shoulders kind of going off in the other direction. If you're doing that on purpose and you understand that to shape a shot, that's one thing. But if you think everything's lined up, that's going to create a problem. So let's go ahead and draw in the swing plane in here. See what he does on the takeaway. Goes up the swing plane, actually a little bit above it, probably because of the angle of the shoulders. Now let's see if we can drop the club back down. Now at this point here, the club should come straight down and then down that line. Let's see what he does. He drops it down pretty good drop down. Right down to the pretty decent there. But the ball, you can see the ball is going off. The ball is going off that way. So his ball is kind of following the foot line and he's trying to swing that way. So we need to get him to be aware of the setup so he can hit the ball in the direction he wants to go. Not a bad setup altogether. We just got to get everything parallel. But a great down move. Face on view, we see a pretty good setup. Ball's in front of the left cheek of the face. Take the club back nice and slow. And what's happening is she's pulling that club way inside. What we want it to do is get the hands get further away from the body, not closer. So she's pulling that club in, and look how shut the club face is. There's been no rotation of the club at all. Now she's really close to herself. Got right up by her shoulders there. So she's not going to have an easy time of getting back to the golf ball. Let's see how she does. Moves the head back down. Gets the hands out a little further. And then quits rotating altogether. Kind of chunks into the ball. Notice the ball is still sitting there. That's because she pulled her hands in so close that she's no longer on the same line as the golf ball. So what we want to do is get her on the takeaway to get out much wider than that. Extend that left arm. Push those hands out away from your body as far that way as you can. What we see with this golfer is more of a sitting down position rather than a bent over. Her hips are pretty level here, and her back is almost going straight up and down. We need to get her to take that whole T and kind of tilt the hips down in the front and get the spine bent forward to 1 o'clock. That's going to be a very important change for her to be able to develop any kind of speed on this swing. Let's go ahead and watch the takeaway now. It's not too bad. Lifting the club a little bit up. Not a bad position there. Gets nice and high. Now she's going to come down to the golf ball. Just a slight bit over the top. Good energy coming into the shot. Standing even more straight up and down here through impact. And right on through the shot. She's a very consistent ball striker but doesn't have any length. And I think in order for her to get length, we're going to have to get those hips bent over. Going to have to get the pelvis pointing down that way a little bit more. Get the butt up and get the spine a little bit more on that angle. Here we have a good setup. Notice that the arms are hanging freely straight down from the shoulders. Very nice position there. Takes the club back. Perhaps a little too far to the inside. But it's still pretty close to being parallel to the toes. Not too bad. Then she gets up. Gets a little tall there. And she gets over the line to where now the club head is not pointing, the shaft is not pointing to the target line, but you can see it's pointing way off to that line over there. So we want to get her a little bit more laid off with that club, more pointing down the target line or perpendicular to her back as she's in the position now. Also, let's try to get some flex in that right knee. It's a little straightened up. Now she's going to plant the foot down nicely, drops into the shot, really transfers her weight easily good to the front side and turns right on through it. So if we can just work on that plane a little bit so the club head's a little more laid off at the top. Okay, we're looking here where this golfer set up out down the line. You can see that he's aimed quite a bit out to the right. If he's going for the targets, which are quite a bit left of that, he's going to be pulling the shot in order to get it there. So let's see what happens in slow motion. Notice he's taking the club pretty vertical on the way back right there. Not a bad move. Rotates into the shot. Now, that's about as far back as he needs to go. And he really does have his forearm parallel with his shoulder, so he's in a pretty good position right there. I'd like to see the right elbow a little more down to the ground. It's a little pointing up behind him. We really need to get the right elbow pointing down on that line right there. So that's something to work on. Now he's coming back down to the ball pretty nicely. Right on through. Good follow through right there. See, down the line. Then he flies that left elbow out again. We got to get him turning that left elbow down. He's putting a lot of strain on it. And the reason he's doing that is he's not able to rotate the hips around here. The hips are still pretty wide open. It's putting quite a bit of strain on his body to do that. So we'll work a little bit on getting more rolling off that foot right there to the inside. Okay, we can see here that we got a golfer with legs a little bit stiff. Probably has all of his weight back on his heels. So we'd like to see a little, at least an unlocking of the knees so that the weight is distributed from about the bottom of the ankle bone to the balls of the feet in that area and on the insides of the feet. So watch the takeaway here. My guess is he's going to have to lift a little bit. Yep, there he goes. So he has to lift right a bit because he can't load into that right leg because it's stiff already. So he's going to turn, take the club pretty far, and lift some more. Now remember, the backswing is a swing that's supposed to get us ready to leap. And you can't jump when you're standing up like that. One of the great practices is the vertical leap, where you jump up onto a 6-inch high box or something. PGA pros are going to be jumping much higher than that, of course. So let's watch the downswing now. It's got a good wrist hinge there. And he's moving back, trying to get back to where he was at setup. Good hand-eye coordination there. You can see that he's coming right back into the ball very nicely. Gets right through it. Turns, kind of flips the hands a little bit right there. Good hand action, actually. He just wasn't turning fast enough to keep up with it onto a finish. So if we can get him to keep loaded up to the ground a little bit, feel like he's pushing into the ground on his backswing, not pushing off the ground with his backswing. We've drawn in the swing plane. Let's watch the takeaway. Pretty good, pretty parallel to the plane. Gets up there at a pretty good position. Right there, then lifts a little bit. Good wrist hinge, staying pretty close to the plane. I'd like to see at this point that she would kind of rotate the club head a little more down on that line there instead of coming forward with it. Notice how the club head stays too vertical at this point. We need the club head to drop below that yellow line earlier. And she brings it right back down on plane. But the ball's going to go to the right because she kept her right hand under the club. We hear that a lot. I think most amateurs do that. It's a subconscious desire to help the ball in the air. Well, what we really want to do is feel like we're going to smash down on the ball with the face of the club. Rotate the club toe up. Go to a nice finish. Not too bad. Here we see a pretty good setup. Knees are flexed out over the shoelaces. Hips are bent, tilting at the hips. And the hip sockets are right over the ankle bones. Chin is up a little bit. Arms are parallel to the feet. Good setup. Watch the takeaway here. Up above the swing plane a little bit. It's a two-plane swing coming up here. That means that he should drop the club under, but he keeps it right up there. So what he's doing is he's taking it up pretty high. So here's a case where we'd like to see him flatten the backswing a little bit and then keep it back and forth on the same line. Let's get this out of the way and watch down. Gets flat-footed, gets a little stuck there. What we'd like to see is shifting off from the right heel where he's pushing off, kind of like a baseball pitcher pushing off the rubber. A little bit more pushing off. See how he's stuck right there, and there out comes that left elbow, and then he turns through it. But you know, this is a beginner golfer. It's actually a pretty good swing. Here we see a nice athletic setup. Let's watch the takeaway. Nice and steady. Good width there. Look how wide he's getting. He's really getting that club away from his body there. That's what we're looking for. Weight staying on the inside of his right leg. And look at the transfer there, the shift into the inside. All I'd like to see is, at this point, I'd like to see more club lag. So I'd like to see the club still back at about that angle there. That'll give him some more distance. But you know something, we can live with what he's got there, so that's fine. Move on through. Good rotation. Look at that. Look at that rotation right there. That was perfect. Look at the extension down the line. Wonderful extension. Everything's turned through together up to a great finish. What a good shot. We have a great setup here. Club's on a good shaft plane. The plane will describe the takeaway. See that right up? But then as he comes down to the ball, what will happen is the right hand will shift under the golf club a little bit, which pushes the left arm up. Now you can see how the left arm is real high. That's leaving the face of the club open. When he makes the impact, there goes the ball off to the right. I don't know if you can see it. Now the ball is shooting off on that line right there, off to the right. And it'll continue to go right on him. See, it's even going further right now. It's up. And that's because that right hand is underneath the golf club. We need to turn the right hand over. We're just going to watch this in slow motion and watch what happens to the head. Notice it leaves the red line, the red circle, and never quite gets back to it till after finish. I don't mind the fact that his head dropped a little bit on the downswing. That's acceptable. But I don't want it here on the top of the backswing. On the downswing, I don't mind it dropping behind a little bit. So he ends up scooping because the head is back. What you'll notice on this takeaway is that the club head stays very shut all the way up. See, it's still shut there. We want a natural rotation of the club as it's turning. It's designed to turn around that shaft. And if we're more relaxed, we'll actually turn the toe almost vertical at this point here. And he's going to go to the top of the backswing and just kind of have a little short slap at it where he doesn't get his right side through at all. So he's still flat-footed. So we're going to get him to get a little wider on his takeaway and get the toe of the club up and then try to rotate more off the right heel onto the left heel. We've been working with this golfer to get some width in the backswing, and unfortunately with that came a stiffness, and you'll see that as she takes the club back. Nice width there going back, great shoulder turn, and then all of a sudden she just kind of stops. The club at this point needs to be hinged so that the palm of the right hand is a little bit more to the sky. That's going to give her some additional power, and she won't have to be swinging the wrong end of the club. She can swing the handle end. Now let's see if she brings that club right back down that plane again. Does nice job right back down the same plane. But she's stiffness, so she pushes the ball a little bit off to the right. I think if we could get her to be a little more relaxed at the top of the backswing, we're going to see better results. Golfer stands pretty tall at setup, but he's got a good swing. Notice that the club comes back pretty much on the plane. Then he goes up. He doesn't quite get it right back down to the plane, but he gets it close enough that he comes through at a pretty decent impact. He's facing the ball at impact, which is good for a tall golfer. He's not too twisted out of shape. This is going to be a control hitter. He's going to hit him pretty much down the middle, right on through to a nice, relaxed finish. That's a pretty good swing. This golfer's bent over from the shoulders instead of from the hips. She's going to take the club too far back to the inside. Notice as she goes back, the club's going to go way back inside, and it remains dead shut. See that? How the club face is still pointing to the ground. Then we're going to get her to come up and come back down to the ball with a nice solid strike. Good energy coming into the ball and a good rotation.